I am sure that you have sat in a meeting wondering why you are there. Or perhaps you've been in a meeting where the communication is one way, where you don't understand what's going on, and it's highly likely that most other people in the same meeting feel the same way too. Or maybe you have been frustrated about how poorly the meeting has been organised. This video will help stop you making these same mistakes for when you come to run your own meetings. My name is Francesca, and I've got lots of information to share, so you may want to make notes as we go. Okay, let's start by recognising why this topic is so important. In 2023, HR Magazine quoted a survey stating the following: 55% of UK office workers said they waste far too much time in meetings, whilst 81% were confident that shorter meetings would achieve the same outcome. In the same survey, 57% of workers said that they only have one useful meeting a week. The worst culprits for time wasting in meetings were people waffling, 59%, too much small talk, 48%, late joiners, 31%, and people not paying attention, also 31%. The survey went on to say that 53% said they attend too many disengaging and poorly structured meetings. This figure rises to 75% for remote workers. In summary, the impact of poorly organised and poorly run meetings is clearly damaging levels of productivity and employee engagement. This isn't good when everyone is so busy. We need to make our time spent in meetings count. So here's our advice on how to make your meetings more efficient and productive. Our first top tip is to rethink your approach to meetings by dividing each meeting into 3 separate parts, that is before, during, and after. Now let's take each of these 3 parts in turn, exploring what needs to happen to make your meetings both efficient and effective. Part 1. Before your meeting. This is all about preparation. Ask yourself these important questions. What is the purpose of the meeting? Who needs to attend? And how can I get them to be ready to contribute to the meeting? You need to be honest with yourself by asking this very important question. Is the meeting actually needed? If it is only for sharing information, then why do you need to have the meeting in the first place? Meetings should be about interaction, discussion, problem solving, and resolution, and not just for checking off what's been done and what hasn't. There are far more efficient ways for doing this, for example, by sharing and updating reports and dashboards. Some meetings can just become habits, and I mean bad habits. When preparing your meeting, don't overlook housekeeping questions such as the start and finish times, the location, including login details if the meeting is to be online, and how the room is to be set up. For example, will you need meeting materials such as flipchart paper, pens, and any IT connectivity for those joining remotely? In summary, this is all about creating a meaningful agenda and providing this in good time so that people can prepare. Of course, you will need to make sure that the agenda is circulated well in advance, drawing attention to any pre-reading or other preparation that is required. Always remind people about the need to arrive on time and be logged in, and by this I mean mentally as well as physically, so the meeting starts promptly and purposefully. Ask them to be ready from the outset. Part 2 is about what happens during your meeting. At the beginning of the meeting, welcome everyone and make sure that they have a copy of the agenda. This will help all the attendees to be focused on what is going to be discussed. Your agenda will provide the necessary structure for your meeting to help you keep on track and for everybody to know what is going to be discussed and in what order. If people are late in arriving, then start the meeting without them. Be the change you want to see by role modelling good timekeeping. Of course, you don't want people to feel humiliated if they arrive late. However, they will need to feel some pain about failing to arrive on time, whilst honouring those who had arrived promptly to get the meeting underway as planned. Time is money, and meetings can prove to be very expensive if they are not properly managed. Before the agenda items begin to be discussed, ask a colleague to make notes. Unless detailed minutes are specifically required, action points are highly recommended. Use 3 simple headings of what, who, and by when. Taking action points is a task to be delegated, as doing this yourself will only distract you from managing the meeting. And of course, recording action points is a role that can be rotated amongst other colleagues at future meetings. It's an opportunity to share responsibility amongst the team. Start off your meeting by reviewing the action points from the previous meeting. Keep a tally of action points cleared and those to be carried forward. I suggest introducing a key performance indicator. For example, 8 out of 10 action points cleared gives an 80% performance. Let's face it, what gets measured gets done. Make the meeting engaging by involving everyone. Invite challenge so to avoid groupthink. Remember, great minds don't think alike. Instead, they have the ability to think differently. If people stray off the agenda, then politely bring them back. However, don't dismiss their point. Instead, record their point on a flip chart or elsewhere to either return to the topic later, as any other business, or to include as a future agenda item. Some people refer to this technique as parking an issue. Managing a meeting is a controlled process, but this needs to be done with sensitivity and a high degree of emotional intelligence. The ability to read body language is required, along with being able to appreciate and understand the different personality types that can exist. For example, those with a preference for extroversion may be quite talkative and have a habit of thinking out loud. However, those with a preference for introversion may want to reflect on what has been said before responding. This thinking time can easily be mistaken as non-participation, which may well not be true. Chairing a meeting is very much about using your facilitation skills to encourage participation and keeping the meeting on track, on topic, and on time. At the end of the meeting, ask your colleague who has been taking the action points to summarize and run through them. This will ensure that everyone is clear about who is doing what and by when. Let people know that the action points will be reviewed as the first item on the agenda at the following meeting. This will sharpen accountability, especially if you introduce the KPI that I mentioned earlier. Once you've worked through the agenda, close the meeting by thanking everyone for their participation and for their contributions. If it's appropriate, inform everyone of the date, time, and venue of the next meeting. Either way, let them know that a copy of the action points will follow shortly. Remember that it's important to close the meeting on time. People will not thank you for keeping them longer than was planned for. The third and final part is what needs to happen after the meeting. This is really important. Otherwise, all of your hard work during the meeting is at risk of not being put into action. Follow-up action is needed to avoid drift taking place. You need to keep up the momentum, focus, and energy created during your meeting. Ask your colleague who has recorded the action points to issue these within 2 hours of the meeting closing. Next, take time out to review your meeting by asking these questions. What went well? What could have gone better? What differences could be made to improve the efficiency and effectiveness of your meetings going forward? This reflection time will help you seek continuous improvement. That is to fine-tune your future meetings so that you and your colleagues get the most value from your time together. Let's summarize. I said earlier that time is money, and costing out the time spent in meetings can be frightening. However, when meetings are well run, they are very productive. That is, they are on track, on topic, and on time. I hope you have enjoyed this video and learning how to make your meetings more effective. Thank you for watching and for listening.